reading Greene, The Comedians. The Comedians. This was published in 1966. It plays it plays in Haiti. The comedians are Mr. Smith, the presidential candidate some time ago, Mr. Jones, who calls himself Major Jones, and Mr. Brown, who tells the story. They met on a cargo ship, and we are here in the second part of the book in chapter 2, Roman 2. Captain Concasseur was the leader of the party, and he held me at gunpoint on the veranda, while his men searched the kitchen and the servants' quarters. I could hear the bang of cupboards and doors and the screech of smashed glass. "What are you looking for?" I asked. He lay on a wicker chaiselong with a gun in his lap, pointing at me and at the hard upright chair on which I sat. The sun had not yet risen, but he wore his dark glasses all the same. I wondered whether he could see clearly enough to shoot, but I preferred to take no risks. He made no reply to my question. Why should he? The sky reddened over his shoulders, and the palm trees turned black and distinct. I was sitting on a straight dining room chair, and the mosquitoes bit my ankles. "Or is it someone you're looking for? We have no refugees here. Your men are making enough noise to wake the dead, and I have guests," I added, with reasonable pride. Captain Concasseur changed the position of his gun as he changed the position of his legs. Perhaps he suffered from rheumatism. The gun had been pointing at my stomach. Now it pointed at my chest. He yawned, his head went back, and I thought he had fallen asleep, but I couldn't see his eyes through his dark glasses. I made a slight movement to rise, and he spoke immediately. "Asseyez-vous." "I'm stiff. I want to stretch." The gun was now pointing at my head, and I said, "What are you doing? What are you and Jones up to?" It was a rhetorical question, and I was surprised when he answered. "What do you know about Colonel Jones?" "Very little," I said, noticed that Jones had risen in rank. Then came an extra loud crash from the kitchen, and I wondered whether they were dismantling the range. Captain Concasseur said Philippe was here. I kept silent, not knowing whether he meant the dead uncle or the live nephew. He said, "Better coming here." Before coming here, he went to see Colonel Jones. What did he want with Colonel Jones? I know nothing. Haven't you asked Jones? He's a friend of yours. We use white men when we have to. We don't trust them. Where is Joseph? I don't know. Why isn't he here? I don't know. You drove out with him last night? Yes. You returned alone? Yes. You had a rendezvous with the rebels? You're talking nonsense. Nonsense. I could shoot you very easily. It would be a pleasure for me. You would have been resisting arrest. I don't doubt it. You must have had plenty of practice. I was frightened, but it was even more frightening of showing my fear. I was even more frightened of showing my fear. That would unleash him. Like a savage dog, he was safer while he barked. Why would you have arrested me, I asked. The embassy would want to know that. At 4 o'clock this morning, a police station was attacked. 1 man was killed. A policeman? Yes. Good. He said, "Do not pretend that you have courage. You are very frightened. Look at your hand. I had wiped it once or twice against my pyjama trousers to get rid of the moisture. I gave a bad imitation of a laugh. The night's hot. My conscience is quite clear. I was in bed by 4 o'clock. What happened to the other policemen? I suppose they ran away? Yes, we shall deal with them in due course. They left their arms behind when they ran away. That was a bad mistake. The Tom-Tom Macoute came streaming out of the kitchen quarter. It was odd to be surrounded by men in sunglasses in the murk of the early dawn. Captain Concasseur made a sign, to one of them, and he hit me on the mouth, cutting my lip. Resisting arrest, Captain Concasseur said. There has to be a struggle. Then, if we are polite, we will show your body to the chargé. What is his name? I forget names easily. I could feel my nerve going. Courage, even in the brave. Courage, even in the brave, sleeps before breakfast. And I was never brave. I found it needed an effort to stay upright in my chair, for I had a horrible desire to fling myself at Captain Concasseur's feet. I knew the move would be fatal. One didn't think twice about shooting trash. I will tell you what happened, Captain Concasseur said. The policeman on duty was strangled. He was probably asleep. A man with a limp took his gun. A métis took his revolver. They kicked open the door when the others were sleeping. And they let them get away? They would have shot my men. Sometimes they spare the police. There must be a lot of men with limps in Port-au-Prince. Then where is Joseph? He should be sleeping here. Someone recognized Philippot, and he is not at his home. When did you last see him? Where? He signaled to the same man. This time the man kicked me hard on the chin, while another snatched the chair from under me, so that I found myself where I didn't wish to be, at Captain Concasseur's feet. His shoes were a horrible red-brown. I knew that I had to get upright again, or I would be finished. But my leg hurt me, and I wasn't sure I could stand. I was in an absurd position, sitting there on the floor, as though at an informal party. Everyone was waiting for me to do my turn. Perhaps when I stood up, they would kick me down again. That might be their idea of a party joke. I remembered Joseph's broken hip. It was safer to stay where I was, but I stood up. My right leg gave a shoot of pain. I leaned back for support against the balustrade of the veranda. Captain Concasseur changed the position of his gun to cover me, but without any haste. He had an attitude of great comfort in the chaise-longue. Indeed, he looked as though he owned the place. Perhaps that was his intention. I said, "What were you saying?" "Oh yes, I went last night with Joseph to a voodoo ceremony. Philippot was there, but we didn't speak. I left before it was over." "Why?" "I was disgusted." "You were disgusted by the religion of the Haitian people?" "Every man to his taste." The man in sunglasses came a little nearer. The glasses were turned towards Captain Concasseur. If only I could have seen one pair of eyes and the expression. I was daunted by the anonymity. Captain Concasseur said, "You're so frightened of me that you have pissed in your pantalon. I realized that what he said was true. I could feel the wet and the warmth. I was dripping humiliatingly on the boards. He had got what he wanted, and I would have done better to have stayed on the floor at his feet. Hit him again, Captain Concasseur told the man. Dégoûtant, a voice said. Tout à fait dégoûtant. Dégoûtant. I was as astonished as they were. The American accent with which the words were spoken had to me all the glow and vigour of Mrs. Julia Ward, Ward Howe's battle hymn of the Republic. The grapes of wrath were trampled out in them, and there was a flash of the terrible swift sword. They stopped my opponent with his fist raised to strike. Mrs. Smith had appeared at the opposite end of the veranda behind Captain Concasseur, and he had to lose his attitude of lazy detachment in order to see who it was who spoke, so that the gun no longer covered me and I moved out of reach of the fist. Mrs. Smith was dressed in a kind of old colonial nightgown, and her hair was done up in metal rollers, which gave her an oddly cubist air. She stood there, firmly in the dawn light, and let them have it in sharp, fragmented phrases, torn out of Hugo's self-taught. She told them of the brute horrible which had roused her and her husband from their sleep. She accused them of lâcheté in striking an unarmed man. She demanded their warrant to be here at all. Warrant and again warrant, but here Hugo's vocabulary failed her. Montrez-moi votre warrant. Votre warrant. Où c'est? Où y est? The mysterious word menaced them more than the words they understood. Captain Concasseur began to speak. Madame, and she turned on him the focus of her fierce, short-sighted eyes. You, she said. Oh yes, I've seen you before. You are the woman striker. Hugo's had no word for that. Only English could serve her indignation now. She advanced on him, all her hard-worn vocabulary forgotten. How dare you come here? Flourishing a revolver. Give it to me. And she held out her hand for it as though he were a child with a catapult. Captain Concasseur may not have understood her English, but he understood very well the gesture, as though he were guarding a precious object from an angry mother. He buttoned the gun back inside the holster. Get out of that chair, you black scum. Stand up when you speak to me, she added in defense of all her past, as though this echo of Nashville racialism had burned her tongue. You are a disgrace to your colour. Who is this woman? Captain Concasseur asked me weakly. The wife of the presidential candidate. You have met her before. I think for the first time he remembered the scene at Philippot's funeral. He had lost his grip. His men stared at him through their dark glasses, waiting for orders which didn't come. Mrs. Smith had recovered her grasp on Hugo's vocabulary. How she must have worked all that long morning when Mr. Smith and I visited Duvalier. She said in her atrocious accent, "You have searched, you have not found, you can go." Except for the absence of certain nouns, the sentences would have been suitable only for the second lesson. Captain Concasseur hesitated. Too ambiguously, she attempted both the subjunctive. Too ambitiously, she attempted both the subjunctive and the future tense and got them wrong. But he recognized very well what she intended to say. If you don't go, I will fetch my husband. He capitulated. He led his men out, and soon they were going down the drive, mostly more noisily than they had come, laughing hollowly in an attempt to heal their wounded pride. "Who was that?" "One of Jones's new friends," I said. "I shall speak to Mr. Jones about it at the first opportunity. You can't touch pitch without... Your mouth is bleeding. You'd better come upstairs and I will wash it in Listerine. Mr. Smith and I never travelled anywhere without a bottle of Listerine." So that was the end of Roman 2, and I read Roman 3 soon.